In the quiet expanse of New Horizon Colony, Yunji Park moved through her daily routine with practiced precision. The terraforming station hummed around her, a symphony of technological marvel against the backdrop of a distant, rust-colored landscape. Her daughter Yuna, 8 years old and full of boundless energy, played near the habitat's large observation window, her small fingers tracing patterns on the thick, transparent shield that separated them from the alien world outside. The colony was a testament to human resilience, a small pocket of life carved into the harsh wilderness of a planet never meant for human habitation. Yunji watched her daughter with a mix of pride and careful attention. Yuna's bright eyes sparkled with curiosity, her laughter echoing through the compact living space they called home. That morning was like any other. Breakfast was a simple affair of nutrient-packed meal cubes and synthesized fruit. Yuna complained about the taste but ate quickly, eager to show her mother a drawing she had made the night before. It was a colorful mess of lines and shapes, a child's representation of the alien landscape they now called home. "Look, Mama," Yuna said, holding up the drawing. "I drew the mountain we saw during our last expedition." Yunji smiled, running, her hand through her daughter's hair. "It's beautiful," she replied, knowing full well the drawing looked nothing like the actual landscape. But to a mother, every creation was a masterpiece. The colony's morning routine began. Maintenance crews checked external systems, communication officers monitored long-range signals, and children prepared for their daily educational programs. No one suspected the silence would soon be shattered. The first indication of trouble came as a low, distant hum. Most colonists dismissed it as another equipment malfunction, something common in their challenging environment. But Yunji knew different. Her years of technical training had sharpened her instincts. The hum grew louder. A warning alarm began to pulse, soft at first, then increasingly urgent. "Mama?" Yuna's voice trembled, her drawing forgotten and falling to the floor. Before Yunji could respond, the first energy weapon struck the colony's outer shield. The impact was unlike anything they had experienced before. A violent, screaming burst of light and sound that seemed to tear the very fabric of their reality. Chaos erupted. Colonists ran in every direction. The carefully maintained order of their settlement dissolved in moments. Automated defense systems attempted to respond, but they were hopelessly outmatched by the incoming assault. Yunji moved with a mixture of fear and determination. Her military training kicked in, pushing aside the panic that threatened to consume her. She grabbed Yuna, pulling her close, shielding her daughter with her own body. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice steady despite the destruction around them. The attackers were unlike anything humans had encountered before. The Kralvax moved with a brutal efficiency, their energy weapons cutting through protective barriers as if they were made of paper. They showed no mercy, no discrimination. Civilians, children, workers, all were targets. A massive explosion rocked the habitat. Structural integrity warnings blared from every communication panel. The carefully constructed world of New Horizon began to crumble around them. In that moment of absolute terror, Yuna was struck. A stray energy blast caught her side, sending her small body flying across the room. She landed in a crumpled heap, her breathing shallow and labored. Yunji's world stopped. The sounds of battle, the screams of her fellow colonists, everything faded into a single consuming moment of horror. Her daughter, her entire world, lay motionless on the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of their home. The Kralvax continued their assault, unaware that in that single moment they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could comprehend. They had injured a mother's child, and that would be their greatest mistake. As emergency systems failed and the colony burned, Yunji gathered her unconscious daughter, her eyes reflecting a rage that would soon transform from a quiet ember into an unstoppable inferno of revenge. The medical wing was cold and sterile, a harsh contrast to the warmth of life that once filled Yunji's world. Yuna lay motionless, medical tubes and wires creating a complex web around her small body. Machines beeped in a steady, emotionless rhythm. each sound a reminder of her daughter's fragile condition. Doctors spoke in hushed tones. Medical reports used clinical language that meant nothing to a mother's breaking heart. Severe energy weapon trauma, they said. Minimal brain activity, they whispered. But Yoonji heard only one thing. Her daughter might not survive. The Galactic Council's response arrived 3 days later. A digital communication, cold and impersonal. The message was clear. The attack on New Horizon was classified as a territorial misunderstanding. No immediate action would be taken. No justice would be served. Something broke inside Yoonji that moment. Not her spirit, but something far more dangerous. Her past began to resurface. Before becoming a terraforming technician, she had been part of an advanced military research unit. Her specialty was complex systems analysis and unconventional warfare strategies. Skills she had buried beneath years of peaceful colony life now emerged like a dormant volcano, preparing to erupt. Night after night, she sat beside Yuna's hospital bed. Her fingers moved across digital interfaces, gathering information. She studied Kralvak's communication networks, military structures, supply routes. Each piece of data became a weapon, each system a potential point of attack. Old military contacts began receiving encrypted messages. Most were surprised to hear from her after so many years. Some remembered her reputation, a tactical genius, who could see patterns where others saw chaos. Her transformation was methodical. She sold her remaining colony assets, converted resources into untraceable digital currency. Advanced communication equipment was purchased through carefully constructed anonymous channels. Each move was calculated, each decision precise. The medical facility became her base of operations. Between monitoring Yuna's condition, she designed her strategy. Traditional military approaches would not work against the Kralvaks. She needed something more sophisticated, more personal. Her plan wasn't just about destruction. It was about sending a message that would echo through galactic communication channels. A message that would make every species understand the consequences of harming a mother's child. Specialized hacking tools were acquired. Custom-designed algorithms that could penetrate the most secure alien communication networks. Backdoor access points that would allow her to manipulate complex systems from a single medical room terminal. Psychological warfare became her primary weapon. She didn't just want to hurt the Kralvaks. She wanted to make them understand fear. The kind of fear that comes from knowing someone will never stop hunting you. Former colleagues were cautious. This is suicide, they warned. The Kralvaks will destroy you before you can make a move. Yoonji would simply smile. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. Weeks passed. Yuna remained unconscious but connected to life support. Her presence became Yoonji's anchor, her motivation. Every system she studied, every potential attack vector she mapped, it was all for her daughter. The medical staff began to notice changes. The quiet mother who had been a constant presence was transforming. Her eyes held a different light, focused, determined, dangerous. By the time her preparations were complete, Yoonji was no longer just a mother. She had become a weapon, calculated, precise, unrelenting. The Kralvaks would learn a fundamental truth. When you harm a child, you awaken something beyond military might. You awaken a mother's rage, and rage, in its purest form, knows no boundaries. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when the first reports arrived. Representatives from 100 different species stared in disbelief at the comprehensive breakdown of Kralvak's military and economic systems. Something unprecedented was happening. Ambassador Korin from the Trilax Federation was the first to speak. "This is not random destruction," he observed. "This is calculated strategy of the highest order." Intercepted communications revealed the growing panic within the Kralvak's leadership. Commander Vrel had become a shadow of his former self. Once a confident military strategist, he now looked like a hunted animal, constantly watching over his shoulder. The attacks continued with mathematical precision. Each strike was more sophisticated than the last. Military analysts across different civilizations began studying the incident, trying to understand the methodology behind these unprecedented disruptions. No one could trace the origin. The attacks seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Advanced tracking systems failed. Sophisticated defense networks crumbled like paper structures. Rumors began to spread. Some believed it was a collective effort by multiple resistance groups. Others suggested an advanced artificial intelligence had been unleashed. A few whispered about a single individual, a theory most considered impossible. In the hospital, Yunji continued her work. Yuna remained unconscious, but her mother's determination never wavered. Each medical monitor became another strategic interface. Her world had narrowed to two objectives: her daughter's recovery and systematic dismantling of those who had hurt her. The economic impact was devastating. Kralvak's trading routes collapsed. Their once powerful commercial networks became unreliable. Species that had feared them for generations now saw vulnerability where they once saw strength. Intelligence agencies from multiple planets began intense investigations. How could such comprehensive destruction be achieved by what appeared to be a single source? The mathematical probability seemed impossible. Diplomatic channels buzzed with speculation. Emergency meetings were called. The Galactic Council, typically slow to react, found itself forced into urgent discussions. Commander Vrel's desperation grew. He authorized increasingly aggressive countermeasures, but each attempt to trace or stop the attacks failed spectacularly. It was like fighting a ghost, something that existed everywhere and nowhere. Other civilizations began to watch with a mixture of fear and fascination. The systematic dismantling of the Kralvaks was happening without a single traditional weapon being used. This was warfare of a completely different nature. Technological experts analyzed the attack patterns. They discovered something extraordinary. Each system infiltration contained subtle mathematical signatures, not errors, but almost like hidden messages. Elegant, precise, intentional. The hospital room remained Yunji's primary base of operations. Medical equipment mixed with advanced communication systems. To an outside observer, it would have seemed bizarre. A quiet room where the most sophisticated attack in galactic history was being orchestrated. Political dynamics began to shift. Species that had been oppressed by the Kralvaks for generations now saw hope. The seemingly invincible civilization was showing weakness, and the source of this weakness remained a complete mystery. Intercepted communications revealed growing fear within Kralvak's leadership. They were no longer discussing military strategy, but survival. Each day brought new system failures, new economic challenges. The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted 3 standard cycles. Representatives from different civilizations shared data, compared intelligence, but no one could explain the comprehensive nature of the attacks. One thing became clear: this was not just an attack. This was a systematic deconstruction of an entire civilization's infrastructure. Someone was sending a message. But who? And why? Whispers began to spread about a single phrase that kept appearing in scrambled communication channels. A message that seemed both a warning and a promise. You hurt my child. Simple words that carried the weight of an entire civilization's potential destruction. The galaxy watched and waited. Something unprecedented was happening, and no one, not a single species, understood exactly what was coming next. The broadcast came without warning. Every communication channel across the galaxy suddenly went silent, then flickered to life with a single image. Yunji stood in the hospital room, Yuna's medical records displayed behind her. Her appearance was calm, almost peaceful, but her eyes held something far more dangerous, a promise of absolute destruction. To the Kralvaks Collective, she began, her voice clear and precise. You made a mistake. You attacked my daughter. You believed you were untouchable. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. Representatives from 100 different species saw something they had never witnessed before, a mother's pure, calculated rage. Commander Vrel's communication center went dark as she spoke. Every system they had left began to shut down simultaneously. It wasn't just an attack, it was complete annihilation. Yunji explained everything. How she had systematically dismantled their entire infrastructure. How each attack was carefully planned. How she had used their own technological superiority as a weapon against them. Diplomatic channels collapsed. Military networks disappeared. The Kralvax went from a powerful civilization to a completely isolated entity within moments. My daughter's life is worth more than your entire civilization, Yunji declared. The simplicity of her statement carried more weight than any traditional threat. The broadcast revealed something else. Detailed evidence of Kralvax war crimes. Hundreds of colonial attacks, suppressed reports, hidden massacres. Everything was suddenly exposed to the entire galaxy. Other species watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. This wasn't just revenge. This was a surgical deconstruction of an entire civilization's power structure. Yuna remained in her medical bed, unconscious but present. Her image represented everything Unji had fought for. A silent witness to her mother's extraordinary mission. The Galactic Council's emergency session broke into chaos. No protocols existed for this type of situation. A single human had done what entire military coalitions had failed to do for generations. Commander, Frel attempted a final communication. His message was simple: surrender. Yunji's response was equally straightforward: too late. The final phase of her plan emerged. Critical Kralvax leadership was systematically removed from power, not killed, but completely discredited. Their entire political and military structure collapsed from within. Diplomatic immunity meant nothing. Financial networks disappeared. Communication channels were permanently sealed. The Kralvax went from a feared civilization to a complete non-entity in less than 72 hours. The hospital room remained the center of this galactic transformation. Medical equipment mixed with communication systems, Yuna's unconscious form a constant reminder of why this was happening. Other species began to understand. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about sending a message about the consequences of harming the innocent. The Galactic Council's final resolution was unprecedented. Complete diplomatic isolation of the Kralvax. No trade, no communication, no existence in the broader galactic community. Yunji had transformed from a colony worker to the most powerful individual in galactic history, not through military might but through intellect, determination, and a mother's love. As the final systems went dark, a simple message repeated across all communication channels. You hurt my child. 5 words that brought an entire civilization to its knees. The galaxy would never be the same again, and in a quiet hospital room a mother waited for her daughter to wake up.